Let's bring in right now retired four-star Army General Barry McCaffrey. He's an NBC News military analyst and former U.S. ambassador to Russia, now the director of Institute for International Studies at Stanford and an NBC News international affairs analyst. Michael McFaul. General, let me start with you. It seems trite, but I just got to say, in the Cold War family I grew up in, we believed in peace through strength, and we believed that capitulation, especially when you capitulate to Russia, leads to only bad things. I'm curious, militarily, what could be the consequences of hanging our European allies and Ukraine out to dry?
Look, it's almost impossible to process and understand what's going on. The Putin regime, not only, really, they're on their fourth invasion of sovereign countries right now. Putin is a gangster, a kleptocracy. There's nothing that doesn't signal a threat to Western Europe in the behavior of Russian military actions and Russian foreign policy. I cannot understand what Mr. Trump is doing. Essentially, NATO, an organization to keep the peace in Europe, to keep the U.S. engaged, the two greatest concentrations of economic and political power, the European Union and the United States, is now being wrecked. The Article 5 assurance that the United States will be there to keep the peace is now gone. Mr. Trump, for reasons unknown, is essentially repeating the objectives of Russian murderous aggression. The next step up is Poland, the Baltic states, Finland. This is incomprehensible what he's up to.
Well, and that is the important thing, the next step up. And if you look at our intel communities, they will say he's not going to be pleased. Donald Trump is wrong saying this could have been settled. He still wants Kyiv, and after Kyiv, he wants Poland, and after Poland, he wants the Baltic states. This is a man who wants to reconstitute, if not the old Soviet empire, he wants to reconstitute the old Russian empire. And of course, Poland is on the front line, aren't they, General?
Well, no question. But all of Europe now understands that the guarantees, the assurance of U.S. military and political backing are essentially gone. There can be no trust in the future deterrence of NATO minus the United States. And by the way, this comes with a background of incomprehensible sort of Babel speak, seize the Panama Canal, seize Greenland, coerce economically Canada into becoming a 51st state, use military power against drug cartels in Mexico. It's just difficult to understand how anyone could arrive at these conclusions. And by the way, we're looking at a Secretary of State, former Senator Rubio, who has experience and judgment and history. Keith Kellogg's a sound guy, knowledgeable. The National Security Advisor. Why are these people not speaking out? Where are the leadership of Congress watching what's now occurring? It's placing the United States at fundamental risk going forward.
Well, and that's what we're going to be watching for throughout the day, to see if any Republicans, especially the Republican senators and House members who have privately told anybody who will listen, whether at the Munich conference or whether in Washington, D.C., how strongly they support Ukraine, how they see Ukraine rightfully as victims of Putin's invasion. Ambassador McFaul, of course, even the Biden administration was looking at the possibility of talks with Russia. CIA director did shuttle diplomacy time and again, going to Russia, trying to figure out a way to get peace talks started where we weren't negotiating from a position of weakness. But let's look at what's happened over the past week. We've unilaterally surrendered on so many fronts. We had the Secretary of Defense coming out saying, oh, no chance of them getting into NATO. No. They're going to have to give up a lot of land for peace. Of course, you negotiate that over the table, of course, and he even had to back off of that. But now you have Donald Trump blaming Ukraine. Nobody in Europe Nobody outside of Russia has blamed Ukraine for this. So how far back does that set us at the negotiation table to not only have a just peace, but get a lasting peace? Because as we learned, the United States ignoring the invasion of Georgia, the United States ignoring the invasion of Ukraine in 2014, the United States ignoring the invasion of Crimea, the United States ignoring the shooting down of passenger jets, all that did was encourage more Russian aggression. So what are the consequences of this if we don't go in and negotiate a tough and lasting peace with Vladimir Putin?
Well, first, Joe, your laydown about peace through strength was fantastic. You should take that clip and send it to every member of Congress, Republican member of Congress. You don't need to send it to the Democrats, and especially to the senators, and especially to the people. Senator, now Secretary Rubio, he used to agree with you. I know that for a fact. And I'm shocked that people are not thinking in those terms, because you're absolutely right. Right now, we look weak. We are acting weak, and weakness has consequences for our national security. First and foremost, in Europe, I was at that Munich Security Conference. Our European allies were in absolute shock about what the vice president said, lecturing them about democracy when we're having struggles with our own. And by the way, thank you for mentioning Alexei Navalny, not talking about the problems of arresting and killing dissidents in Russia. Yulia Navalnaya, his wife, his widow, was in the audience, by the way. But second, just to your point, we are just giving Putin everything without even starting to negotiate. We're telling him he gets territory. He gets Ukraine not to be neutral, not in NATO. We're going to pull our troops out of Europe. And we're going to force Zelensky to have an election before there's going to be a set of negotiations. We're giving him everything. And I've negotiated with the Russians. They're tough negotiators. We need to negotiate with them. But it is a horrific negotiating strategy to give them everything and demand nothing in return. It's just a catastrophic moment for American power.